Yes, YouTube. I took four trades today, three won, one lost. And three of the winners had something in common, and the one loser didn't have that in common, and that is a true draw in liquidity. And it's mad that I keep coming back to this, but hear this: bias, right? Bias is not the same as draw and liquidity. So we got bias. I'm gonna go through all of these and then the setup, which is in my case accumulation, manipulation, distribution, which is basically just an inversion fair value gap. So I did take a trade going. What did I just delete all that for? Okay, I did take a trade going up at some point in here. Can't remember what it was. Um, no, I do remember what it was actually. So this was the bias. This was the bias because we'd took liquidity and inverted that big gap there. No, so that became the draw on liquidity. Okay, right. So the bias was higher. This is where it gets confusing. This is why I actually like sometimes just fall off and forget what this is. All right. So the bias was higher because we swept this, and we're making higher highs. There was targets as well. There's places to be aiming for like these. I wasn't far from those highs, all that kind of stuff, right? So that was my bias. Bias said higher. I had that as an overall target. So that's the big magnet, that's the big pull. Then, okay, this is where it gets confusing. You can't just have one target and then that's your trade. Even though look that does that does work. The thing with my strategy is I'm scraping the top off of trades. I'm not catching the whole move. I'm literally scraping the top off the trade. So to have that bias up here, which was like whatever it was here, whatever it was, there's like, okay, cool. That's a reason to go higher. We're basically creating reasons. We're creating alignment. We're creating context. That's a reason now to go higher, and we need to stack these reasons in order to take a trade. So then I go, okay, this low respected a gap, broke structure. You can see it does the same on 2 minute, respects a gap, inverts quite a big gap there. So I'm like, okay, cool. There's your target. Now, the riskier way is to just jump in that trade now and put a entry there, stop loss there, TP there, which is gonna work sometimes, and you'd want it to work majority of the time. But the thing that makes this strategy stronger is creating the alignment that goes with a trade like that, right? So I'm on the 1 minute, so I have to be dropping to these smaller seconds time frames to be able to find that alignment. But so if that's now my target, that's now my protected low. This pushes up, you think, ah, shit, okay, I'm gonna miss out on this trade, whatever, whatever. I could then wait for this to come back into this gap here, tap into that, invert that, and then go higher, because now not only do we have one reason, two reasons, then an area that says, okay, if we violate around here, this is not a good trade anymore. But also then we have the setup that looks good. It's like, okay, cool. Okay, here this was not the strongest because we didn't have like a clear gap to be taken higher. This wasn't the trade that I actually took. But also it's more because I didn't log on. I didn't log on to gold at that point. I was looking at this here again and I was thinking, okay, cool. This was just alignment on top of alignment, because then if we've made this and we're pushing up from it, then when we come down and respect this low again and then push up and make another IFVG, I'm like, okay, this has to go. I can't remember what one I took. But yeah, I took something in there. Anyway, here's where the loss happened, right? So climbed up, price climbed up, started coming back down. So early on, I could see that we was now deciding to come lower, but the difficulty was that there wasn't many gaps to be taken. There wasn't a clear target, so I had to go and find a target and find some reason where we're going. So at the moment, once we invert these down, like once we start inverting this down, now it's just creating a new bias. It's not creating a draw on liquidity. Look, this 5 minute gets inverted. So I'm like, okay, cool. My bias is lower for now. Then it's now time to find the draw on liquidity, which is, it can't just be the next low or the next high without a reason behind it, because that's just the bias. The bias is saying that all these lows should potentially be taken. And then when I went to a higher time frame, I noticed that we probably are coming into that, because there's a 1 hour gap right there that we might just pull into, which we do. So here's where I took a loss, right? So I'm thinking, cool, we're respecting everything coming down. So I'm short, and we took liquidity inside a gap and broke structure, and then we did this little gap, this little manipulation wick into this gap here. So I'm like, okay, cool, maybe I can ride that. So what I did is I waited for the inversion on there was even a 5 second inversion I think I dropped to. Again, another mistake of mine is trusting the 5 second, but there is a 30 second here, so it wasn't the 5 seconds fault that it lost. It was my fault, and basically the reason being is because this at the moment isn't a draw on liquidity. This is just a bias. This is just this is just the next low that has to be taken if we're short. There's no actual conviction that is the low. This is just an idea at the moment of that, like all these lows. I could put lines on all these lows and say, okay, this is the next low. And then what happened is I got in the trade and we started pushing up. Luckily, I cut the loss early because I saw it start failing and it didn't shoot off like straight away. So when it came up, I was like, okay, cool. We could still be short. Why have we come up? So I'm looking. I see there's a 2 minute gap there that got tapped into. 3 minute gap untapped. So maybe that's why we came up. 5 minute gap untapped. So I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, cool. Got our bias. I'm still short. But when we respond off this, when we push off that and break and like push away, then I'm going to read it again. So now, because we did that, and I get a nice little AMD shape here, look, accumulation manipulated into an area, and then we push away. Now, this low here becomes a draw on liquidity. That is the next draw on liquidity. As soon as that gap inverted, it's inverted a little bit, but I'd still be confident enough to be able to take that as a trade. That now becomes the next draw on liquidity. It's not just taking that trade now because it's made that pattern. That would be okay if I had a higher risk to reward. Like if I was somehow able to get in up here and be taking like 2 to 1s or 3 to 1s, then that's okay, because some of them are going to lose, some of them will win, but majority of the time I'm going to come up winning. But my risk reward is not that good. So what I have to do then is add more alignment to it, and that's where sometimes it's going to be difficult, because the market might just run away without you. You might not get the entry that you're waiting for, and it is about being patient, because it's about stacking up those things. So now we've got a bias check. Now we've got an actual draw on liquidity check. Now we've got a protected high in the bias and a protected high in the draw on liquidity. So first of all, it's basically stacking. So I've got my range here, and then inside of that range we've made a new range, so that should be protected and that should be the target. And then literally one more time, and I know this seems a bit excessive, but it really isn't, because this is how we get those solid trades. And then look, same range, there's the low, there was the high, there was the low. We came back, hit 50% with a massive manipulation candle, big distribution candle right through it again. So now that's my trade. That is my actual trade now. And then obviously this is up to me whether I'm gonna get in at a price where it's like, okay, shit, I think this is gonna run, so let me just enter there. So I think I actually might have done. I think I got filled like somewhere around here, which is a shame really, because like that you could have got. I could have easily got like a 2-to-1 out of that, which is mad. But anyway, got in there, and then now target is this low, but because we're stacking up the reasons as to say why we're on the right side of the coin, but we're flowing with the waves at the moment, because it's like, okay, now there's a magnet, there's a reason why we should come to there, and there's a mini magnet, and then there's a mini even smaller magnet, and they're all pulling the same direction, which is always going to give me the conviction that this trade is going to win. So then it's just enter and then exit safely at this low, and then if you could hold to that low, whatever, and that's it. And I had 3 wins and 1 loss, and the loss, all 3 wins had that conviction. All 3 wins had a bias, a draw in liquidity, and then the setup. It wasn't just, okay, I think we're going to go lower, so let's start looking for the setup. It's like, okay, nah, we've got a bias, we've got a reason to be going higher. Now we've got a draw in liquidity because we inverted that, and we've took liquidity there and broke structure. So now we've got a bias, and then we can easily create a range and say, okay, anything that comes remotely close to that, if it doesn't start looking good, if it's not behaving how it should, then maybe I'm wrong. But by that time, you're not already in the trade to be like, oh shit, maybe I'm wrong, let me get out of the trade. It's like, okay, I'm just not going to enter because it's not behaving the way I want it to. And that's the other point really. It's like when you're creating these ideas, it's just looking at the behavior, like how is this behaving? If this is truly bearish, like, yeah, we should bounce off of this. We shouldn't invert it, we shouldn't push away from it, we should push off it, and we do. So when you start seeing the behavior happen in the areas that you expect to see the behavior happen, that's just adding even more conviction. I'm not gonna lie, I actually really wanted to get in on this trade like as soon as it just made this pattern, because I was like, there was conviction there. I was like, okay, it's behaved exactly how I wanted it to. I lost in there, so that like there's a reason why we came up, and there was a reason why we came up. Like part of me was thinking, okay, shit, why have we disrespected this swing here because we're bearish? But if you actually zoom out on a bigger scale, there's a reason why we came up. If there was no other gap up there, then I would be like, okay, this has lost a little bit of conviction for me. And that's all it is. It's like building that context, building that idea, and then looking for the behavior to confirm that idea. It's like, okay, I've got 1 idea, 2 idea, now I'm looking for the behavior. Is it all doing what I expect it to? No, we could do the same here. Look, okay, so we've come down and we have tapped into this 1 hour gap. So we start building the context. We're now pushing up towards this high, which should be protected. So why are we doing that? Kind of respected this 2 minute here. Have we inverted any gaps up? Not really. So there's the reason why we're coming that up. Okay, 5 minute gap. Maybe we'd have to wait. This is a tough one because it's not really yeah, like the bias now would be just because we've come into that 1 hour gap, we should be coming up. But if we're really truly going to take this trade, we'd have to wait for this to invert, because until that inverts, this is still a protected high. This is still like this is still behaving. It could be still behaving bearish. So it's like just waiting, and that is honestly the hardest part. is like waiting for all of that alignment and then deciding to get in the trade, and then even still you can wait for all that alignment and the trade just still runs off without you. But the beauty of it is like you can just use all different time frames as well. Like it doesn't have to be just 1 minute and 15 second and all that kind of shit. Like if there was more market structure to frame this trade off, I don't see there's a reason why you couldn't just do it on any time frame. It's just working within the market structure. So if there really isn't that much market structure, then sometimes you just have to drop until you find the market structure. But yeah, if I was gonna do this now, I'd pretty confidently be looking at that, because, and this is the thing as well, you can get ahead of yourself, but you can't get ahead of yourself in terms of the rules. Like, I can get ahead of myself now and be like, okay, I really think this is going higher because, you know, this almost inverted. We've got 1 minute until that inverts. You know, if this was a true manipulation, why are we just messing around? Why are we not coming back down? So already in my head, I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of a bias here. There's a little bit of a reason why we might be coming higher. Stacking those odds, stacking those convictions. And then it's just finding the trade inside of it, which this doesn't look like it's probably going to give one, to be fair. Looks like it's possibly just going to run the high straight away. But then, look, 20 seconds until it inverts. Now we start looking at, you know, if this is going to come back and give us this is going to give us a setup. It's probably going to give us a setup into there. If I want to see a manipulation, where it's going to be inside of there. So, okay, there's your drawing liquidity confirmed now. So now all we'd want to do now is just hope that this just accumulates for a little bit. Maybe it accumulates for a couple more candles, doesn't break out of there, and then it breaks down there, and then up, and then that's a valid trade to take, in my opinion. We've got the bias because we tapped into a 1 hour gap and we pushed off it. That's a bias. That gives you a rough idea that we should be going higher. Now we have a drawn liquidity with reasoning. We inverted a gap. We're also not really behaving the way we would if we was bearish. So we've got a drawn liquidity, and then we just wait for the pattern to play out, which looks like it's actually playing out. I wonder if we just wait and actually try and take this trade. So I'm gonna move that out of the way. This is gonna be fun, isn't it? If I actually get a trade after all that waffling. So we're in the 3 minute gap. Again, like I said, we just want to see good behaviour in there. We want to see it behave the way it should, if that makes sense. Nice little accumulation there. I feel like that could be how long. We go 3.5 on it. In a 1 minute gap as well. We're about to make a 1 minute gap. No. Looks like we're about to enter this trade. Nervous now. It's been waffling, and now it's actually time. I want to see a good closure though. That didn't close yet. It's a shame. My slight worry is that we haven't come like deep enough yet. It's only a slight worry though. I also sometimes like when it doesn't invert instantly, because now if we pull back and tap into that and then break this high again, then it gives me a little bit more conviction that this trade is going to run. I'm actually thinking I might have to go on 3.5. I'm not going to compromise my entry on this one. Just going to get in it. That's my break even point, and that would be my target up there. Let's see, do we behave how we want to behave? Did we make a 1 minute gap? No. Any reason why this should fail? Not really, no. There is a little 5 minute gap down there. That's the only real thing going against us here. But like I said, if this comes up and takes this high again, in my opinion, that's just more alignment. Da 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 da. Fuck me, man. It's a tough one now, you know, because it's actually not behaving the way I'd want it to. It's kind of playing around a little bit. I think I'm gonna reduce my risk on this one because I'm not fully excited by it. I'm still not closing it yet. Same closure, we just touched, literally aligned with the top. Yeah, it's that 5 minute gap that's making me worry about it, to be honest. This little gap here. I'd now want, if this pushes away, I'd want it to see it respect this low here. Otherwise, this might just flip on us. Okay, now it's gonna run without us. 15 seconds, about to close, and it does. Alright, cool. So the trade plays out, sadly no entry. That would have honestly been too much of a risky entry to get in there, because that could easily have dropped. Plus, like I was saying, there was reasons why it could have dropped as well. This could have just been faking us out, so it is what it is. It's one of them. There's literally not even a 15-second gap that I could have gotten on. Yeah, doesn't matter. But yeah, at least it plays out. At least it made sense. But yeah, I'm done for the day. Peace.